topic is the 3 levers. So the first class lever, an example is these pair of scissors. So there's always a force, an axis, and a resistance. So in this case, the force would be me closing the scissors, and the axis is right here in the center, and then the resistance is the scissors opening and closing. So the second class lever, an example of that is a wheelbarrow. So I don't have that in my room, but so the wheel on the front would be the axis, and then the load that's on top of whatever's in the actual wheelbarrow is the resistance, and then the force would be me pushing the wheelbarrow. The third class lever would be a broom. So the bottom of the broom that's actually sweeping up would be the resistance, and the axis would be the top of the broom, and the force would be in the middle of the broom that's pushing the broom to actually do the sweeping. So the next topic that I'm going to be discussing is fluid drag forces, and there's 2 types, surface drag and profile drag. So I'm a little bit confused as far as what the difference is, but I do know that surface drag has to do with the example that they used was water on swimmers, I think. Water flows in the opposite direction as the swimmer, but it's still moving along the body. And I know that profile drag is the opposite, so they go hand in hand, but profile drag is the person moving through the air, I think. I'm a little bit confused on that part, but I do know that they go hand in hand, and I think that it's important for athletes to be aware of that so that they can adjust their body depending on what their sport is, adjust their body so that they're able to flow through the air or through the water in a more efficient way so that they can get to where they need to go, which might be the finish line. An example of how athletes can improve their performance is drafting. So I read that cyclists use drafting, which is when they ride directly in back of another cyclist, which sort of minimizes the amount of profile drag that they're experiencing, since they're not directly in front of whether it be air or water for swimmers. They're in back of another person, so they're experiencing less of that drag. So an example of surface drag and how athletes can minimize the amount of surface drag. In the book talks about how luggers wear bodysuits so that they reduce the amount of drag that they experience by being more compact, tighter and smoother their body is, the less turbulence they're likely to experience, which would allow for them to move faster and therefore to the finish line faster. Okay, so the next topic is Newton's laws of motion. So the first law is the law of inertia, and the second law is the law of acceleration, and the third law is the law of action-reaction. So the law of inertia basically states that things in motion stay in motion. So for example, with the bike, a parked bike is going to stay still and it's not going to start rolling on its own. But if the bike is already going, then it's going to keep going, and that's basically the first law. And then the second law, the law of acceleration, is after inertia is overcome, then acceleration can happen. So an object in motion, law of acceleration is mass times force equals acceleration. So equal amounts of mass are going to require, no, let me rephrase that. The more mass you have, the more force you're going to need to accelerate, for example, the bike. So if you're heavier, you're going to have to add more force in order to accelerate the bike faster. So for the third law, the law of action reaction, an example that I just thought of right now is my nail. So my nail was on the table, which was the action, and the pressure that I put onto the table resulted in my nail breaking. So my nail breaking from the table was the reaction as a result of the action of my nail going down and bending on the table. And those are the 3 laws of Newton's 3 laws. Thank you.